Life is a science fiction horror film released in 2017. The plot of the film revolves around a group of astronauts on the International Space Station who discover a rapidly evolving and dangerous extraterrestrial life form brought back from Mars. As they study the organism, they realize that it poses a significant threat to both their lives and potentially to life on Earth. The movie explores themes of isolation, the consequences of scientific discovery, and the struggle for survival in a tense and claustrophobic setting. If you enjoy science fiction and horror films, Life may be worth watching, though it's known for its suspenseful and sometimes intense scenes. In the near future, an uncrewed space probe returns from Mars to Earth orbit with soil samples potentially containing evidence of extraterrestrial life. The probe delivers the samples to the International Space Station, where exobiologist Hugh Derry revives a dormant cell that quickly grows into a multicelled organism. To promote the new discovery, the crew allow a group of schoolchildren to name the organism Calvin. Hugh realizes that Calvin's cells can change their specialization, acting as muscle, neuron, and photosensory cells all at once. While being provoked, Calvin becomes hostile, wrapping itself around Hugh's hand and crushing it. Calvin then escapes its enclosure and devours a lab rat, growing in size. Engineer Rory Adams rescues Hugh, but Calvin grabs onto his leg, prompting physician David Jordan to lock Rory in the lab. After failing to kill Calvin with fire, the organism enters Rory's body through his mouth and consumes his internal organs to speed up its growth, before escaping the lab through a fire control vent. The crew attempts to inform Earth of the situation, but the station's communication system overheats and shuts down. The station commander, Yekaterina Katgalovkina, performs a spacewalk to find and fix the problem, which turns out to be Calvin. If you enjoy watching this video, then subscribe to Angel Recaps for the latest movie's explanation. Calvin attacks Kat and ruptures her spacesuit's coolant system. As her suit fills with coolant and she begins to drown, Kat makes her way to the airlock. Against David's wishes, Kat sacrifices herself to keep Calvin outside of the station. Unfortunately, the organism manages to separate from her body before it drifts off into space. Calvin attempts to re-enter the station through its maneuvering thrusters. The crew fire the thrusters to blast it away, but the sudden loss of fuel causes the station to enter a decaying orbit, where it will burn up in Earth's atmosphere. Systems tech Sho Murakami suggests using the ISS's remaining fuel to get back into a safe orbit, even though it will allow Calvin to re-enter. The crew seal themselves in one side of the station and prepare to vent the atmosphere from the other side, hoping to neutralize Calvin. The organism attaches itself to Hugh's leg and uses him to slip out of the quarantined area. The crew discovers Calvin feeding from Hugh after he unexpectedly collapses. Sho seals himself inside a sleeping pod, while Calvin tries to break inside. David and the station's hazard specialist, Miranda North, use Hugh's corpse as bait to lure Calvin away and trap it. Having received a distress call shortly before the failure of the communications grid, Earth sends a Soyuz spacecraft to push the station into deep space. Unaware that this is a fail-safe to protect Earth and that the crew is to be sacrificed, Sho leaves his protective cover and boards the craft. He is followed by Calvin, resulting in the Soyuz's crew being killed, Sho getting trapped and sacrificing himself in a botched attempt to seal Calvin in the craft, and the vessel crashing into the ISS and further pushing it into a decaying orbit. Fearing that Calvin will survive re-entry, David and Miranda decide to try and trap it in an ISS escape pod. Once inside, David will manually pilot the pod containing Calvin into deep space, thereby isolating it and enabling Miranda to return to Earth in the other pod. David leads Calvin into his pod and launches into space. As Miranda launches her pod, she records a black box message to warn Earth of Calvin's threat. Subsequently, one pod is hit by debris from the damaged Soyuz, while David is attacked by Calvin while trying to pilot. Eventually, one of the two pods lands in the South Pacific Ocean and is found by Vietnamese fishermen, while the other pod flies away from Earth. What the Vietnamese fishermen find turns out to be David's pod. Meanwhile, Miranda's pod systems begin to fail as it flies uncontrollably into deep space. On Earth, one of the two fishermen managed to force open the pod's hatch door despite David's dying pleas, as other fishing boats begin to converge on the same spot.